The Witcher Blood Origin. I wouldn't advise watching it, it's terrible. Watch Andor instead, and I'm surprised to be saying that, but yes, Disney Lucasfilm actually produced something that isn't awful. I'm not going to spoil Andor. Watch it for yourself if you're interested. It has a few faults, but it has a tight script and a way above average cast, including Fiona Shaw and Andy Serkis. As for Blood Origin, by all means stay if you want to watch me dissect it in the name of science and try and get some laughs out of it on the way. It's filled with ham acting, poor characterisation on a level that makes even Hawk the Slayer look good. People's speech is filled with jargon that's never explained properly, and even as someone with knowledge of The Witcher, I found myself getting confused in places. So if you don't know the lore, the books and the games, good luck! The makers seem to have an open contempt for their audience and are instead only interested in spreading messaging from Californian far-left identity politics and the message that at this point is getting as boring as it is nonsensical. There's that, and then there's the cast repeatedly breaking into song, and it's probably worse than She-Hulk and the Rings of Power, so wow, strap in, it's going to be a bumpy ride. We start off and we're upside down in a fight sequence for some reason, and I can barely tell what's going on. Well done makers on finding something more annoying than Dutch angles. The character, Jaskier the Bard, is in the middle of the fight. He's a character from the Witcher TV series. He's a philandering troublemaker and perennial friend of Geralt the Witcher's, who always gets him into trouble. And in that sentence, I've given you more information than the entire show does about Jaskier. It just expects you to know from seeing The Witcher beforehand. In the fight, it appears to be some elves fighting against some humans from a group called the Temerians. The show doesn't explain when this is supposed to be, where it's supposed to be, why Jaskier's there, who the Temerians are, why they're in conflict with the elves, and are you starting to see the problem? As Jaskier is about to be killed by a Temerian soldier, time is frozen, but not the fire in the background for some reason. Don't even think about it. And time has been frozen by some powerful magic user, played by Minnie Driver. Jaskier asks, why save him? He's just a bard. And Minnie wants Jaskier the Bard to sing a story back to life, whatever the hell that means. And she also says he's a bard that the Scoia'tael risked attacking a Temerian army camp to save. And they also never tell you who the Scoia'tael are. The script also doesn't define what the conjunction of the spheres is or what a witcher is, and heaven help someone coming to this series with no prior knowledge. This is one of the few things I've ever watched that should have actually come with a glossary. Also, it's nice seeing Minnie Driver, but as far as I recall, she never comes back. That 3 minutes is all you get. She wants Jaskier to write a story of an event from long ago to unite the elves. And we go into the intro, and they introduce the cast of the story that Jaskier is to write. The main cast contains someone called Fjall of the Dog Clan, Cien of the Ghost Tribe, Brother Death, who barely does anything in the show, and who thought that name was a good idea? It's like it's trying to be more edgy than Shadow the Hedgehog. The Majors, Zeka and Sindril, Meldoff the Dwarf and her vengeful hammer Gwen, and a seventh person, only known as the Lark. And no, they never explain the dwarves, or the Dog Clan really, or the Ghost Tribe. The Dog Clan are apparently bodyguards to a royal family, and that's about all you get. This show is at the same time way too fast and wastes most of the time it does have. It feels like this whole thing has been cut down to 4 episodes from maybe 8 to 10, and it's incredibly incoherent. Hollywood is now churning out rubbish at such a fierce rate that I can barely keep up. The Lark, meanwhile, is in a place called Innis Dub, an island in the far northern sea, and what does that mean? Without knowing where that is, what difference does it even make? So the Lark walks into a local bar and starts singing. And I don't like it much. It's an almighty racket. In the crowd, meanwhile, a man grabs a young barmaid and will not take no for an answer. The Lark intervenes by throwing knives at the man and his friends until they're chased off or full of knives, and then she goes back to singing, and one of the crowd actually shouts, "Go on, you girl." And what a hackneyed cliche this scene is at this point. I must have watched this very scene in 1,000 other things before this, and they topped it off with a woman in the crowd going full, "You go girl," and this is going to be a hard sit. I at least admired the writer's restraint in not having the whole crowd clap and shout, "You go girlfriend." The camera then moves to a city called Zintria in the south, to a new character, an elven king called Alvatir. The king is going through the streets of his city and he gets attacked by assassins from other kingdoms, but he's protected by the royal protectors, the Dog Clan. And that is kind of all we get to know about them. So they protect the royals, and we get a few more characters. Fjord Stoneheart, the Dog Clan's best warrior, King Alvatir and his sister Princess Merwin. So in short, they kill the assassins and get away. Then back at the palace, we find out that Fjord has been doing naughty things with Princess Merwin. He gets caught doing it and gets banished by his own father, who leads the Dog Clan. The king, meanwhile, has a plan for his sister. The kingdom is at war, and has been, I think, they say, 1,000 years. And I bet you thought the English and French were bad with their trifling 100-year war. And wow, it's no wonder the elves die out in The Witcher. So the king wants peace because everyone is starving. So he's going to marry his sister to the king of one of the groups he's at war with and make concessions to the other. But the princess is not keen, and neither are many of the king's advisors. Meanwhile, we have another new character introduced, an evil wizard called Baylor, played by Lenny Henry, and he's one of those advisors who's none too happy. Lenny Henry, who after the Rings of Power is starting to become a death knell for franchises.
Could you make me a cup of tea, please, Stephanie?